Welcome back. The Keetmanshoop rural constituency by-election will kick off in just a few minutes at the southern town, where 6 candidates will race for the councillor position. The by-elections are as a result of the expulsion of the constituency's former councillor, and they are based off Section 10, Number 3 of the Regional Councils Act, which states that a vacancy should be filled within a period of 90 days after becoming vacant. Now, to share with us the situation on the ground, we are joined telephonically by Theo, who is the Chief Electoral and Referenda Officer at the Electoral Commission of Namibia. Good morning, Mr. Mujoro. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Elago. Good morning to your viewers, and thank you for having me on your program this morning.
You're welcome, Mr. Mujoro. Now, is the ECN prepared to have the polls open in Keetmanshoop at 7 o'clock this morning?
Yes, indeed. The Electoral Commission is fully prepared. I want to report to the Namibian nation that yesterday, Sunday, the 14th of May, we had a very important exercise, which was about distributing our materials and our equipment to our various teams. That process took place in the presence of representatives of all the political parties, including the representative of the independent candidate. I want to confirm that indeed that process was successfully completed, and all our teams managed to deploy to their respective duty stations, the various polling stations. I can confirm that all our teams arrived safely at the respective polling stations, and as we speak right now, I can confirm to the Namibian nation that our various teams deployed at the various polling stations are currently busy with what we call pre-poll preparations. These are the final checks in the presence of political party agents of the polling materials, ensuring that everything is where it should be in the correct quantities. They are checking that the ballot boxes are empty and that nothing is in there, so that political parties can ascertain and verify these things for themselves. So in short, we can confirm to the Namibian nation, to the contesting political parties, to the voters, that this process will start as scheduled at 7 o'clock this morning.
Yes. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Mr. Mujoro. But one cannot, go ahead without touching on some of the events that took place this weekend, starting Friday night, where various political parties made serious allegations and accusations against the ECN, some of which they were saying that the Electoral Commission was handling electoral material without the presence or witnesses of certain observers. Was this the case on Friday night? What exactly took place?
Yes, what happened, it's very simple. In terms of Section 35 of the Electoral Act, this particular section allows the Electoral Commission to put in place arrangements to be able to issue what we call duplicate voter cards. In terms of Section 35, the Electoral Commission can put in place arrangements at various locations within the constituency. In this particular case, we had identified one location in the town of Arwat, another location in the town of Koos, and thirdly, a location in Keetmanshoop. We had planned to be able to put up facilities so that if a particular voter happened to lose their voter card or the voter card got damaged, the Electoral Act provides that the Electoral Commission can have facilities in place on any day except for the day of polling to allow a situation where somebody who has lost their card can go to these stations. We can check up their details on our systems because they are already registered. They are existing registered voters on the particular voters register. So if somebody loses their card or their card is damaged, it's simply a question of retrieving their existing profile on the register, and then you can simply print what we call a duplicate voter card. It was not, the intention was not to conduct any new registration process. It's to issue duplicate voter registration cards as provided for, as I said, under Section 35 of the Electoral Act. So clearly, as we were preparing to be able to conduct this process and to afford this opportunity to our voters, there was a lot of misinformation being spread on the ground where some political players made to voters to understand that the Electoral Commission was trying to conduct new registration processes, which was not the case at all. So the incident you are referring to was in respect to that particular program, where we brought in our equipment from the head office, and as we were trying to deposit this equipment securely at the police station, that is when the commotion started. I would like to inform the Namibian nation that as the Electoral Commission, we managed to intervene in this particular process, and we brought all the political contestants together, and in the end, this issue was resolved. That is why we were able to deploy our teams yesterday.
What about the allegations that certain ECN officials were locked in a room tampering with electoral material or election material?
Yes, I can inform the Namibian nation that there was nothing like that whatsoever. I can tell you that there are supporters of certain political parties who are contesting in this particular by-election who have been camping out right in front and basically sleeping at the door of the storeroom where these materials were kept from literally Thursday night until yesterday when we opened this storage facility for the first time in the presence of everybody. When we opened the storeroom where our materials are kept, where purportedly some ECN staff members were hiding, we opened this door in the presence of all the political parties, some members of the media. There was nothing like that. All the materials were securely placed and kept in this particular room. We were able to enter the room all at the same time. There was no one in that room. All the materials, including the materials for the polling process, were found to be in a secure state, just as they were stored in there. And we had a very meticulous process of verifying these materials in the presence of the regional commander of the police in the Karas region, political contestants, everybody. So there was nothing like that whatsoever.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Mujoro. But where would you then say the problem came from? Because, as you said, the issuance of duplicate voter cards is not new. It's a normal practice in every election. So what caused the misinformation then? Is it perhaps a lack of voter apathy?
Not at all. It has nothing to do with the voter apathy.
Okay.
It had everything to do with some political parties, in my view, having seen messages that were circulated on social media platforms. I think political parties some political parties clearly, in my view, were spreading misinformation that was not factual, information that was not factual, mischaracterizing a process of the Electoral Commission to be a process where the ECN was trying to register people afresh, which was not the case. The issuance of duplicate voter cards is provided for in the Electoral Act under Section 35. And here we were talking about people who are already existing on a voters register. It could be someone registered way back in the year 2014. It could be someone registered during the supplementary registration processes in 2019 or 2020. It could also be someone who was recently registered during the supplementary registration process, which we conducted in preparation for this particular by-election. So it was not new registration whatsoever. So yes. Clearly, in our view, this had nothing to do with the voters. I think it had everything to do with some of the political players who unfortunately were spreading this misinformation.
Mm-hmm. I guess the viewers now have better clarity and understanding of the situation. Well, looking at the matters of today, you've assured us that the polls will be open in about 4 minutes or so. So,
correct.
Yes, take us through the voting process for the day and when the result will be expected, please.
Okay, so we will be opening our polls. We have about 6 fixed polling stations that we have determined for this by-election, and we have an additional about 21 mobile, what we call mobile polling stations that will be visited by 6 mobile teams. We will start the process, as I've indicated, at 7, and we will conclude the process at 9 p.m. this evening. Mm-hmm. We have about 6,675 registered voters. It's quite a sizable number, and we are confident that the polling stations that we have determined are sufficient enough to be able to process the number of registered voters within the time period provided, starting at 7 this morning, concluding the process at 9 in the evening. What we would do, if there would be any voter in a queue at any of our polling stations, we would provide them ample opportunities. We will ensure that everybody who is on the queue at the stroke of 9 p.m. will have a chance to pass through the polling stations and to be able to cast their votes. So in terms of when we can expect the results, there are a number of factors that must be taken into account when you are anticipating the conclusion of an election process. When you look at this particular constituency, the number of registered voters may not is not that high if you compare to other bigger constituencies that you would find, for example, in some other parts of the country. However, a critical factor regarding this particular by-election is the distances which our polling teams would be required to travel from where they are operating to the collation center, which will be in Arawak, in the town of Arawak. That will be the determining factor in terms of how soon we can conclude the process.
All right.
So it's not so much about the number of voters or the number of ballot papers that we have to count that may prolong this process, but it is more so the number of distances which our polling teams would have to travel once they conclude the process to get to the collation center so that they can present their results, their polling station results to the returning officer. That will be the critical factor. So we need to give ourselves the space and the time which our presiding officers would require to complete their processes. So we are not going to put a time frame to these things. We will be working closely with our political parties. We will be awaiting all the team until the last team arrives, and the returning officer would start the collation process. Whether it is going to be 3 o'clock in the morning, or whether it's going to be 4 o'clock, whatever time it would take all our teams to get to Arawa is what would determine how soon we can release the results in this particular by-election contest.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mujoro, for making time to speak to us and to clarify some of those issues to the Namibian nation. And all the best to the
elections
for the day.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much, Elago. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, that was the Chief Electoral and Referenda Officer at the Electoral Commission of Namibia, that is Theo Mujoro, and he was just clarifying some of the issues or events that took place over the weekend and some of the allegations that came after that, assuring us that today's elections are planned to be free and fair and no tampering whatsoever has taken place. So if you do find yourself as a registered voter in the Keetmanshoop rural constituency, please head to the polls and ensure that your voice does count.